Hi guys, Matt Thornycroft here from Lead Without Position. And today I'm going to give you something slightly different, and this is a tool that you can use to build your leadership skills. It is something that I like to call the leadership checklist. This is 3 simple prompts that you can ask yourself every day in order to improve your leadership skills. By asking yourself these 3 questions, you will improve your focus and productivity as well as inspire others. So the first action on the checklist is, have I considered my key priorities and my expectations with others? When you work for other people, it is very easy to fall into the trap of doing everyone else's work. If you have a boss that you rely on to give you work, then it is very difficult to be proactive. And even worse, if you have a manager that just gives you one thing at a time, it is very difficult to motivate yourself to do it quickly when you have 8 hours of a day to fill. On the other side, if you have so much that you need to do and people keep putting things on your plate and you are taking that on, it's again very difficult to feel that you can keep your head above water. So the first part of the checklist is establishing your priorities. If you have 12 things on your to-do list, it's unlikely that you'll be able to do all 12 today. It's also very unlikely that all 12 things are important. So part of being proactive and being a leader is thinking about what are the big things that you need to get done in order to move both your own goals and the company forward. For instance, you will always have some tasks with a hard deadline, such as working in payroll, that you need to pay people every month or you might get in trouble. If you pay people at the end of the month, then that final week is critical to get that piece of work done. But it's ultimately irrelevant for the other 3 weeks. So if that's on your to-do list, then put it at the bottom. It's simply not a priority at this moment in time. Again, if you've got a month-end report due, and you're at the start of the month, it's not a priority, so put it at the bottom. But if someone's organized a customer refund and you're in charge of processing it, that is a pretty urgent thing that you need to do to make sure that that customer remains happy. If you were to put that lower on your priorities, there is the risk that you're going to upset that customer, who will then in turn make a bigger complaint. So when you're looking at your to-do list and you have 3 things that all seem important, the skill is being able to rank them in order of importance. And then the key trick here is to do them first. I'm talking at the start of the day, before you check your emails, before you speak to people, get those things done. This frees up your entire afternoon to do everyone else's agendas. And what this means is you remove the risk that you get to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, feel like you've done everyone else's work and not been able to do your own. The other part of the checklist is about expectations. So if you have established your priorities, you then need to communicate with your team and manager to say, I'm going to focus on these things today, and give an indication of when you expect to complete the work. By doing this, you open the conversation that a manager can turn around and say, actually, that's not a priority, I need you to do this. Or he'll say, actually, it won't take you that long, I need it done today so you can free up your time tomorrow. Ultimately, we are terrible judges of how long work will take. If you think a piece of work will take you 4 hours, chances are you're going to need to add a few on. This is a mix of having a poor expectation of time, but also from the sheer amount of distractions and other expectations that will take up your time. So establish your priorities and create those expectations with your team to establish firm deadlines. This will mean that you have something clear to work towards and will keep you motivated to get it done, as now it's your promise to get it done by a particular time. The second part of the checklist is asking yourself, who needs me at my best today? If you are only working for yourself and you are only accountable to yourself, then any day that you don't really want to do anything, you can largely get away with it. You could just have a day of doing nothing if you're not accountable to anyone else. And similarly, if you want to motivate yourself and you don't feel like it, it's much harder to inspire yourself to do things than it is to do it for someone else. When you think about being the best version of you for someone else, else, you start to consider their thoughts and feelings in how you're completing your work. So on days where you just don't feel like doing anything, you can think about how your manager has really severe deadlines and he's reliant on you to get that work done. And if you don't snap out of this slump, you're going to let this person down. Now, this might not be inspiring if you have a terrible manager, but ultimately it will come back to you if you don't get it done. So the other part of motivating yourself is to think about your own personal accountability. It's not a particularly strong motivator, so I wouldn't rely on it if you can. Instead, find someone that you respect and think, how does that person want me to act today? If that person that you respect wants you on your A game, then you'll find you want to step up and bring your A game to impress or make a good impression on this person you respect. And the impact of this is pretty substantial because not only do you impress someone that you respect, you also bring the best version of you, which increases your productivity, which increases your focus, and ultimately increases your quality. So you can go home every day knowing that you gave it your best and made a good impression. And the last thing on the leadership checklist is an empathy practice, which is, have you considered the thoughts and feelings of your team? When you have 30,000 things to do in a day and you've established your priorities and it still feels overwhelming, it's very easy to go into blinker mode. And this is where you simply get your head down, think about exactly what you need to achieve, and block out the absolute carnage that you create as you go along. It also means that you overlook any warning signs that your team is somewhat struggling or not bringing the best version of themselves. If you have a team member who is normally quite a high producer and they seem to be struggling or not producing as much, then have you thought about what's going on in their life? Have they mentioned something previously that's going on, or given any indication that they're not performing at their best? By considering the thoughts and feelings of your team, you're able to spot areas of concern as well as build meaningful connections with your colleagues. So if, for example, that a colleague has mentioned that they're having some family issues, then a manager coming down and stamping on them for their performance is only going to make them perform worse. Instead, what leaders are able to do is recognize any struggling colleagues and offer their help where it's needed. When someone is struggling, all they need is a helping hand. They don't necessarily want to talk about it, especially if you're just colleagues and you're not really friends, but everyone will appreciate a helping hand. So if you take that small or even a medium-sized piece of work off them, that will make them feel better, feel like they can achieve the rest of their workload, and it will build a meaningful connection between the two of you. Then, hopefully, when you're struggling, they will do the same for you. But ultimately, leadership is about this practice. It's not about getting things in return, it's doing the right thing. And in this case, the right thing is helping that person who is struggling. So that's it for my leadership checklist. I hope you found it useful and you can use it going forward to help build your leadership skills. As always, if you like this video, let me know in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe.